All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mariano's Meetups for Tastemaker. We have two Tastemakers today, Tastemakers Tuesday. This is our online virtual platform of cooking classes and mixology sessions and all sorts of fun stuff that we do here, trying to bring the Mariano's experience to you at home. And we're very excited today to celebrate with Angelo Lollino and Jimmy MacMillan, who are both tastemakers for Mariano's. They're with Vero Coffee and Gelato. Today we're mostly going to talk about the gelato, but we can talk about all the coffee and all the special drinks that they do in our stores. But they'll give you sort of a behind the scenes look at like everything that they do for the stores and how great their gelato is and their coffees. And then they're also going to do a demo of a Berry Cobbler, and hopefully I stocked up over the weekend on berries because we had a really great sale at Mariano's on them. So I'm ready to go. You guys know the rules, I believe. Some of you are repeat guests here, but there's a chat button in the middle of the screen, and we want you to ask Angelo and Jimmy as many questions as you want. They're here for you. It can be unrelated to what they're doing. Jimmy is a amazing award-winning pastry chef, wonderful, like knows a lot about everything, so you can ask him anything that you like. And Angelo is going to tell you about the award-winning gelato that we have at Mariano's, because he's competed actually nationally and internationally for a really big title. So he'll tell you about that as well. So ask them a lot of questions. Remember to be kind. And you will be recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can stop your video function. But other than that, we're going to let Angelo and Jimmy take it away.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here today. And we remain ecstatic about being tastemakers for Mariano's. Jimmy joined our team here a little bit over a year ago as our executive pastry chef. I don't have a pastry background. I have a coffee and gelato background, and I needed, we needed a Batman and Robin here. So bringing on this a pastry chef extraordinaire was huge for us. It's really giving us the opportunity to grow and grow in the right direction. So we're so glad to have him as a part of our team, and we're working well together. We're making great things happen. But just a little background on Vero. Vero was a brand that we created exclusively for Mariano's with Bob Mariano, probably going on about 13 years ago, with the premise of creating an authentic, classical Italian cafe that we wanted to put into the stores. They were pretty adamant about not having you know, a corporate a la Starbucks. Not that Starbucks is bad, Starbucks is great, but I think that was classical and traditional to Italy. So my background is in coffee and my background is in gelato. My mother's a chef, so I have a little bit of an Italian food background too. We created this brand. It was originally supposed to be 1 or 2 stores. We're going to try it out. We're going to see how it goes. And we ended up doing over 50 locations in the past 10 plus years between the Milwaukee market and then 40 something of them here in the Chicago market. Ultimately, what we do is we blend and roast some of the finest coffees. We import specialty grade coffees sourced from the top estates around the world: Central America, South America, Africa, Indonesia. We'll work direct with farmers, fair trade. We do a lot of organic. We're a certified organic roaster here. We blend them, we roast them. We made some really unique exclusive blends for Mariano's. And then along that, if you go into a Vero Cafe, you'll also find our artisan gelato. Again, we go out of our way to source the finest ingredients. We make things by hand. We make things fresh, and we deliver them to the store. So our people go to the store, bring it directly to the display case. We work with the staff there on proper scooping, proper decorating. People eat with their eyes first, so super critical for things to look good, kind of the Italian way, right? And then that's it. We merchandise it. We work along with them. Now we've grown as a company. We serve some of the top restaurant groups here in Chicago. whether it be Gibson's Italia or Dynamic Group, Bar Siena, Siena Tavern, those types of places. We exclusively make flavors for them. Bud, and there's so many others, but for me, as the business has grown, it's become, you spend a lot of time working with the customers, and I really needed a teammate here that really understood quality, because first and foremost, it's quality for us. And number one, right? So again, bringing Jimmy on board with me, his many, and I'll let him tell you about his past, but he's number one. So top of the top, best of the best. So he's brought that influence of really making things. We're making our own jams, our own inclusions. We're roasting our own nuts, canning our own nuts, and doing a lot of really cool things with having Jimmy on our team. So Jimmy, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, thanks for that brief introduction and talking about Vero. I'm super excited to be part of Vero, and my introduction to Vero was also at Mariano's. And before I get into my checkered past, like, that was a great experience to really not be from the grocery, I guess, world, you would say, but be asked by Bob Mariano to come on, and that's where I met Angelo. And what I saw with Angelo was a teammate from across the way making coffee and gelato, and they would be setting up Vero's, and I would be setting up the baker operation for about 2.5 years at Mariano's toward the latter part, so pretty recently. And my background was really in luxury hotels. So when Bob asked me to come on, I thought it was something that was really different for me. And many of my friends and contemporaries said, that's really different. I don't know if you want to do that. But I thought it was very rewarding trying to bring something that maybe we would only do for a few people of that quality, and really just make that accessible to everyone in the public. And that continues to be. For me, initially, I am a Detroiter from Detroit Rock City, and played music most of my youth, and as a result got to tour and travel and cook in a lot of restaurants, because that's the only place that I could work when I would get off the road. I'd say, hey, can you take me back? They're like, yeah, whatever, you can cook a little bit. And over time, in between tours, I was cooking at better and better places, and also traveling and seeing that there was a lot in the world that food that the country has to offer, and all these different regions and all these different styles in different regions. Long story short, I selected Austin, Texas as a place to call my next home. Started working at the Four Seasons there by accident. A friend of mine who's also a musician quit, and he's like, hey, I'm going on the road. The chef's gonna be really mad at me because I'm not giving any notice, but I know that you bake and you're pretty good with chocolate and stuff. Maybe if you go over, they're looking for someone, they'll take the heat off me a little bit, they won't be so mad. So I went over, I got hired, and the rest is really history, as they say. I started making a lot of composed dessert. I never knew that existed, and looking at all the artistry. So combining things I loved about music. I had been in the visual arts, I had done a lot of different arts in my youth, and kind of rolled that all up into pastry, which I think is a great field, and it makes people happy. Much like coffee and gelato, there are things that make everybody happy. So traveling through pastry, I've got to see most of the world and bring things back. And now coming full circle, I want to be an American pastry chef that makes the best gelato. And like Angelo said, there's a lot of great gelato out there. We just think it could always be better. And one of our rules, sort of in the upper tier of pastry, is that everything that you make, you can find that default. You can say, you know what, this is great. How can we make it better? Every single day, how can we make it better? So that's one of the things I hope to bring to Vero Gelato, and hope you guys can experience that soon. And we're gonna kind of preview something new that we've been making in the same theme of what we're making today. That's all I'll say. And that's just a little bit about me. So, Angelo?
Yeah, that's it. Should we begin?
Yeah, let's see some cobbler action.
All right.
So we're making a blueberry cobbler with and berry jam with vanilla gelato. So those are the things we're going to make one by one. With a little TV magic when it makes sense. The first one, if you have the recipes in front of you, we're going to make is the oatmeal brown sugar streusel. We've got the flour, a little brown sugar, some butter, oats which we toasted, a little ground cinnamon, and some vanilla extract. And everyone knows what vanilla extract I like to use, so we don't have to go into that too much. The best that we can find, obviously. I used to think I was a pretty good pastry cook, but when I would travel teaching, if the ingredients were not great, the food didn't come out that good. So I thought, you know, it's really not about how good I am, it's about how good the ingredients are.
You know, for us, when we choose an ingredient, you know, there's a lot of manufacturers that will source price first and then try. We're opposite. We're going for what, you know, Jimmy's talking about vanilla there. We do a lot of work with Nielsen Massey, and Jimmy has for many years. You know, they have some of the best, they source some of the best vanilla out there. So, and that's just one example. We bring in some really spectacular stuff from Italy. A lot of our ingredients come from a company, Prodotti Stella, which is part of Di Silva Group, is the company that makes Di Serono Amaretto, Zabaione Florio. These are some really, really nice brands and really super high-end products. But we're, you know, they're roasting and making paste for our hazelnut, for a bunch of different stuff that we do. So it's all about the ingredients. Having a good process is important, I think, in baking and pastry. And then big heart, you know, you put your heart into it, it's going to rock. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, those things are important. And, you know, it's interesting to me when you look at all this quality we put into stuff, all these selections we make, and sometimes we forget that everybody doesn't know that. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to tell people that those are choices that we make. And to choose something of quality takes effort, and it's something that we have to stay with. So I simply put everything in the bowl for our crumble, and you could use a paddle and a mixer. I'm going to use my hands. It's a small batch, and we're just going to mix it and combine it all together. If you do it on a mixer with a paddle, use slow speeds. And pretty much everything in baking and pastry, unless you're whipping cream and incorporating air, you're really going to go with slow speeds. Remember that everything on the mixer emulates our hand. So a paddle, or, you know, like a whisk with a whip. So I don't think we would go on 7 and 8. And sometimes that's where we tend to have less than desirable results. So go slow. You go by hand, you know, it's gentler. I think we all know that small batch cooking, like if you make cookies, comes out really good. And there's no secret, you know.
Jimmy, I also love in the recipe, you do really call out specific ingredients, like what kind of flour to use, what kind of oats to use. So is that what you're talking about? Like you like working with certain ingredients?
That's important, especially the shop I tend to go into stores that I know I can find those things. And Mariano's does have King Arthur flour. They do have that organic line of dairy. They do have those things. So if it's
the Kerrygold butter. The Kerrygold butter is a delicious, delicious butter.
Butter is delicious. And, you know, that kind of butter, it's not just more expensive and better tasting butter, but there's a practical reason too. There's less water in those European style butters. So when you're baking something, you don't want that water. You don't want any impurities. So yeah, this ingredient, like we've been talking, we'll probably talk through this whole thing, super important. So now I've got a crumble.
Oh, wait, Jimmy, also Cindy would like to know, how long do you toast the oats for?
You know, just until they're GVD, which is golden brown and delicious. So depending on your oven, at 350, maybe it's about 5 to 7 minutes. You can use almost any kind of oat and just lay them out on a pan, and just once you see a little bit, now keep in mind, we're gonna bake it further. So you're really just awakening that nutty flavor oats has, making sure it's a little dry again. I would do this with all nuts, all nut flours. Before you start baking, we just toast it a little bit. So you start to see color, it's enough. If you're going to bake it again. If it's something you're not going to bake again, you'll take it a little further.
Am I okay to use GVD?
Yeah.
I know, GBD is like a
I
new
love
term.
the GBD, baby.
CBD, I learned in Texas. When I went to Texas, I thought I was a really hot cool pastry guy, right? When I went down there, the older ladies who baked in our bake shop and the sous chef, they told me that I needed to learn more down-home recipes. And they taught me GBD.
GBD.
And they were absolutely right, because all that training that I got from them, how to make good pies and good cakes. And really, when we get to the cobbler, this is important, because a cobbler where I grew up could just be fruit with the streusel on top, with that crumble that I just made. But in the South, a cobbler really is cake with the fruit mix and that on top, and that's kind of what we're making today. So to finish off our crumble, recipe number 1, if you end up making cookie dough by mixing too much, you'll take a grate, or maybe a smaller grate you have at home, and you can pass that. You saw, like, being gentle, it kind of crumbled nicely, but if it ends up like that, no problem. Then we're going to take one of these silicone mats. And this crumble that I made earlier, that was a little cooler, kind of warm today. And we're just going to press it out pretty flat. Use the back of your hands. They're a little flatter than the front of your hands. At least mine are. Try stuff, see what works for you. Not too tightly packed. But we do like it to be able to come out, and then we're going to put that in the oven like the directions say. You're going to end up with these pieces. So here, we might use that for the, but inside we could crumble it up. So we want to keep our options open, and that'll go in the oven. Ho, 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 oh. Oy. Try this. Taste your
You
food.
made this when I wasn't here.
Tell us what it tastes like, Angelo. It looks really crispy and good.
Wow.
You like that?
Buonissimo.
Oh my God, I'm making this tonight. When we're done, I'm going right in the kitchen.
This is heaven. So good. Sorry.
Good, thank you. Oh no, try everything. And you guys too, as you're baking, you need to try everything you make. It makes a big difference. Maybe it needs a little salt. You know, maybe you like more cinnamon than I like, or maybe the ingredient that you bought is a little different this time. So tasting your food is important. I think we see that on food TV a lot, right? If you're in a competition, you don't taste your food, boom, you get dinged. Maybe you don't win $10,000. So taste your food.
That's really good, man.
Thanks.
Jimmy, someone would like to see what it looks like in the pan.
On the pan? Okay.
Yeah, in the pan or on the pan, whatever.
I brought this out of the oven. Let's see if you can see that.
So it's on the silicone mat, and then you pressed it down, and then once it bakes, you'll break it into the pieces.
So bake it, GVD again. Now these pieces that we have, I will rebake those again and again. You can store them like that.
Okay.
And this is going in the oven. Chris.
Jimmy, if they don't have a mat, what is there other options? Can they use?
Yeah, you don't need to use a silicone mat. You can use parchment paper. That's fine. The silicone mat's a little easier to clean sometimes. Things don't stick to it. But paper is fine. Parchment's good. I like things that are reusable, so sometimes the silicone's good. If you have a gas oven at home, I would use parchment. Yeah. Because occasionally with this flavor transfer that you may want to avoid. So if you have any specific questions, you can always email us here. If you start making things that doesn't come out, you can phone a friend and can give you tips.
Yeah, we'll definitely give you tips. What are we moving on to?
We're gonna move on to, so we made the streusel first, and we're gonna make this cobbler. And like I mentioned before, a cobbler in this setting is vanilla cake that we're gonna make a blueberry preserve and bake that into the cake. But to do that, we need to make the preserve early and kind of cool it down a little bit. So that would be the next thing that we make. I think I need your help with this one. That's your pot.
You got it.
So for everyone watching, there's a side view of what Angelo and Jimmy are doing. So you have a better view of what they're making. So Martha, I think you had a hard time seeing, but they're, you can see a little better from the side.
So sugar. In this case, we're using organic cane sugar. And then we have some pectin to gellify it. So you're always going to want to put a small amount of pectin and sugar together first. That way the pectin doesn't clump when you add moisture to it.
Talk about pectin.
This pectin comes from apples. We call it pectin jaune if you're European trained. And really it just helps us. There's a lot of pectin here in our fruits. We've got two things. We've got fresh blueberries, but we have IQF blackberries. And I just did that so that you guys can see that it's okay to use frozen fruit if that's what you have. Maybe it was January, we all live in winter. We often here will take fresh berries and freeze them, and then we'll use those months from now when we can't get them. So that's another thing you can do. If you have a meat freezer at home, you don't have to just put meat in it. You can put some fresh fruits and some other things that are in the peak of season. Strawberries, it's an excellent thing to freeze. And then you can use in this case, or we can blend them together. The pectin in here, in berries is pretty good. Blackberries is very good. In fact, if you strain blackberries, puree them and strain them, and you walk away to answer the phone, you come back, they might be jellified by themselves. Whoa. Blueberries, not so much. So we're adding a little bit of pectin so we can control the thickness. Yep. Also, we're gonna bake this. Some jams are bakeable, some are spreadable for toast. This one's meant to be baked, and we don't want it to run into the cake. We want it to kind of stay together while it bakes, so we can see a little bit of swirling going on. We want them to combine, but we want it to be attractive and have its own, I would say, identity. Yep. So we're just gonna pour those in your pot. Blackberries, blueberries. Can add the sugar on top of that.
Did you say the sugar was organic?
That's all of that. Sorry, come again with the question?
Did you say the sugar was organic?
It is, yeah. Whenever possible, we try to use organic products, and the organic sugar at Mariano is very reasonable in cost, and it's cane sugar. And so you're just going to take and mix that with the rubber spatula. So Angelo's combining. Yep. Angelo's combining all the berries and the sugar. It is a lot of sugar. Most people do like their jam sweet. You can pull back on that a little bit, but it's something that, yeah, you know, depending on your tart berries, you may want to think about using some agave and some other sweeteners depending. Now this same ratio, I'll tell you, will work for apples, peaches, strawberries, with some minor adjustments. So if you add something that has more liquid, add a little bit more pectin. If, again, it's a sweet berry, it's not so tart like the blackberries. Blackberries should be sweet, but typically aren't. You can pull back on the sugar a little bit. So that's perfect.
So
show that to the camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna show that to the camera so you can see all that sugar is pretty much all included here. So I'm going to bring this to the stove.
So Angela's going to cook that down a little bit. You want to bring it up, and he'll bring it back in different stages so we can see that. He's going to bring it up in temperature so it kind of simmers. You want to stir it a lot. Unfortunately, burned jam doesn't taste very good, and it may look fine. And again, tasting your food as you go. Sometimes berries are expensive. We don't want to waste nice foraged berries or nice organic fruit that we buy. So then when it simmers, we turn it down a little bit, and we can control the viscosity by watching it. And pretty much what you see is what you get, and a little bit. So we're going to watch it get thicker. It's going to get shiny. If you tilt the pan, you won't see water. And then you can go ahead and chill it. We'll take it out of the pan, and we'll probably bag it up. Basically, once it's chilled, it's going to end up like this. I'm just fast forwarding a little bit, but as it cooks, we'll show you the stages on that.
So this is an example of the steps and the things that we do here for pretty much all our products. But our gelato, we love, and I think everybody loves inclusions and variegates and swirls.
The good stuff.
In their ice creams and gelato. So the gelato has to be super, super good, but those inclusions have to be super, super good too. So these are the things that we do here, and this is the awesomeness that Jimmy brought to the table, because again, I don't have a bakery pastry background. I'll always figure it out, but having that expertise, because you know, we could make a jam like this, and if it's not done right, if the pectin's not there, certain components are not there, you add it to an ice cream, or you freeze it, and then the consumer goes to eat it, and it doesn't have the right texture, the right consistency. So the balance, the technique, the recipe is so important. So
it's really important. And you know what I found challenging is making something small like this. We can really select really any berry we want to. If I was doing this in a 40-seat restaurant back when we had restaurants that you sat down in, that would be no problem. You know, I worked at Peninsula Hotel, Four Seasons Hotels. We did a lot of small batch stuff. Here, we're actually making big batches of really high quality stuff, and that is really challenging sometimes. Just to source everything and then manipulate that food so that it ends up the same as a small batch. That's something that we think about all the time.
Yeah, and we'll also offer seasonal, typically seasonal fruit. For a while, we were doing blood oranges when the blood oranges were just beautiful. We were making a blood orange sorbet that was just spectacular. I'm going to go back over to the pot so it doesn't burn.
He's really just drinking espresso. Don't let him fool you. And strength.
Who wants an espresso?
Me. I would love a Vero espresso right now.
They know as soon as they make espresso, I get the other one. All right, we're going to start thinking about the vanilla cake. Of course, we'll have made the jam. And you can make the jam the day before, a week before. This is what I would say is a freezer jam. Again, we can apply it to a lot of fruits. So this cobbler could be any fruit that you have really that you think tastes good. That way, when you're ready to bake the cake, you don't necessarily have to do all these things like we're doing. You could do it the same day, but it's nice to bake things ahead. The streusel too, if you put those in a Ziploc bag, those pieces that we had, they freeze really well. And so you could just pull it out of the freezer, toast them a little bit, and use those. How are we looking?
So yeah, we're looking great. So I just want to make an example, because when Jimmy first showed me how to make this, it seemed really dry. It didn't seem like, it almost seemed like it needed water or some liquid, but I don't know if you can see that. I mean, it really starts to break down. Everything starts to come out of those fresh berries. So it's coming together really nice.
Beautiful. Yeah, basically
Did
all
you
that.
say that does the pectin come in packets, and is 3/5 of an ounce the whole packet?
It depends on the manufacturer. You want to weigh it anyway, and the same would go for yeast. But Certo makes a brand that we use that they have at Mariano's, and it is not something that pre-weigh. You'd have to weigh it out, but it's a little bit more than half an ounce basically. So if it's half an ounce and then a little bit, you're in good shape. With the jam making, you can get very scientific, but you'd have to know how much water and how much solids. For making a small batch, you just have to taste it. And if you feel like it's not thick enough, you can always slurry some of the liquid with a little bit more pectin powder that's been put together with some sugar, again, like we did in the beginning.
Right.
Put that back in. And, this jam's not thermoreversible, meaning once it sets, we can't unset it, but we can continue to set it and also reduce it. So I wouldn't think too much about it. This is an easy recipe that I included because it works almost every time. Knock on wood. But again, if you have any questions,
See. No, I'm kidding.
we'll see. But let me know.
I make it if it does.
It's worked really well for me, and we really don't do much different in the big batches than what Angelo's doing right now. Should we move on?
Go for it.
All right. So cake is a big subject to me. Basically, what Americans are known for in pastry is not a lot, right? French pastry is amazing, and there are a lot of things that are made in Italy that are signatures that have been around for hundreds of years. Our country hasn't been, so we tend to make all those things. But oil-based cakes, something that's very American and is very moist. So this is a version of that. Have another bowl.
But a good Duncan Hines yellow cake,
Hey,
kind of rocks sometimes.
it does. And you know what? Here's my secret. If I
Sorry.
don't have time, if I don't have time, I would pick the highest quality cake mix, add the Nielsen Massey vanilla. We're going to add that fresh berry jam. I don't think we need to be ashamed about that if you don't have the time. If you have the time, make this recipe.
For scratch.
But if not, everything in here, you could take pie filling instead of making the berry jam that we made, and get a box of cake mix, and maybe still make the crumble and still have a really good result. Like there's no reason that we have to make it the same way every time, depending on who's coming over. Maybe you don't like them as much as other people. Maybe it's just for your family. But you know, you understand what I'm saying. Maybe we take that pie filling from a can and just add a little cinnamon and a little vanilla to that. It's great. The cake we're making here is going to, I'm going to simplify cake making. We've seen a lot of cake recipes where it's alternate the ingredients, a little dry, a little wet. It gets really confusing. Let me simplify that. There's going to be one bowl that has our flour, salt, baking powder, baking soda, and sugar all together. This is just our dry mix. And gently sift it together. Easy. We're going to have another bowl. We're going to do all our wet mix, of course. So the oil, buttermilk, eggs. I always put the vanilla in the eggs. I always double the vanilla in any recipe. That's just me. There's vanilla cake after all. You grab that spatula for me. Thank you. Beautiful.
I'm going to check on these berries.
And sour cream. So we've added lots of good fats. You could use yogurt. You could use quark. And then we're going to combine those well with the whisk.
How much time on this, Jimmy?
Let's bring it over and take a look at it. So this is the point that Angelo's at where we want to start to judge, because depending on the berry, every berry has a little bit more or less water than every other batch, right? We have to keep in mind we're working with natural product. You see here, it's looking delicious. Smells so good.
Oh, wow.
Nice. And we still have that pieces of fruit. Now you could take, this is good, it's about 3 minutes away. It is going to tighten up quite a bit more. We want to cook a little bit of that water out still. We're almost there with the jam. If you like pieces of fruit, this is how we would make it, and we wouldn't really break it down much. If we're going to put it in gelato, or today we're going to do a version where we make it almost like applesauce. And the reason is we want to be able to swirl it and kind of distribute it so you get more of those cake and jam bites when you go into the dessert. We're going to also put a little bit more on the plate so you can really enhance how much berry you get. But here's where you can control what that comes out like. Do you want more of a preserve? Do you want more like a jelly? You can blend the whole thing up and still set it and have something more like a jelly. So lots of leeway depending on the fruit you're working with. To final step of the vanilla cake and the flour. If I had a mixer, I could kind of stream this in. So I'm just going to put a little bit of flour into the liquid, a little at a time. How do we say it in Italian? Little by little?
Poco da poco.
Poco da poco. So that's why it's good that Angelo mixed that flour mixture really well. So really what we're putting in is the same thing. It's a little lumpy. That's actually good. There's not big lumps because we have all this fine flour.
Okay, really quick, what's with the lumps in the pancake mix, and why do we want things to stay lumpy?
You know, we really don't want it to stay lumpy, actually. That's one way. It's interesting in recipes. We have lots of ways to express things. Like we make pie dough, we want the butter the size of a pea, you know, things like that. But we don't need it to be the size of a pea. We just need them all to be the same size. So if they're all the size of a pea, then they're all the same size. So in this case, lumpy, you don't want lumps, don't get me wrong. But you don't want to over-mix it so it's thin and runny. You know, mix it so it's still a little lumpy. I know you're not over-mixing it. So that's one way that we stay on the side that we want to be on. Because some of those lumps will kind of work themselves out in the baking process. What this flour is doing, once we add it to liquid, the liquid mix, you may not realize this is what's happening. It's absorbing that water. If you take cake batter, you could make it the night before. It's not going to rise as high, but it'll be more uniform because it grabbed the water. So in a way, even though we have lumps, it's going to continue to hydrate.
Looking good.
Right?
Yeah.
Can everyone see that? Okay. Vanilla cake.
Check on the berries again.
Oh, we're going to need those.
So Jimmy, in the recipe, you say to use a mixer, but I'm so impressed that, I mean, this is easy enough, quote unquote, that you could really do it in a bowl with a whisk.
Absolutely. I wanted to show you this size batch. For sure, you can do by hand.
Okay.
And everyone has preference. This came out smooth. I could load this into a piping bag right now and make cupcakes. It's a great vanilla cake recipe.
I can't wait, Jimmy. This is like a lifesaver because I always struggle with the cake part. Well, a lot of other things too when baking anything, but looks honestly like non-intimidating, which I really like.
It shouldn't be. It's really been simplified, and this is again how I would make it in the hotels, because we were making so much cake, and everybody that touched it, it would come out a little bit different. So here is one way to simplify it and understand the technique of what's going on and get good results. At the end of the day, we just want to have good, yummy cake. Shouldn't be that hard, right? We shouldn't stress about it. It's supposed to be fun. So we will load that right into the pan.
Whoa.
And I can contest to it. The cake is dynamite. And another huge advantage of having a teammate that knows how to make killer cakes is you get killer cakes.
Sarah and I will make more visits out to your facility, Angelo and Jimmy.
Anytime. we love visitors. Not so
I
much.
know, we have so much fun when we
Not
come.
so much right now. We kind of, as soon as people walk in, we're like,
Yeah.
hey.
Right, so there we have our,
What size pan, Jimmy, is that?
so this is about a 7 by 11 glass pan. Notice it's pretty full. I might be pushing it, but I think for a cobbler it's different. We're going to add a lot of fruit to it. We want it to rise. And
Okay.
it's going to fall a little, there's a lot of liquid inside with the fruit. And then we'll look at our jam. See that steam coming off of it? Nice.
Well, this is ready. It seems like it's ready to go.
It is, yeah. So we'll put that in the fridge and kind of cool it down.
This smells so good.
Yeah, this is the benefit of making the jam. The whole house smells like berries.
So similar process, Jimmy, with other berries, other fruits. Process
Absolutely.
is the same if you wanted to make a peach jam or
Absolutely. Find that this one's made for berries that don't have that much water. So if you add something like strawberries, there will be a lot of liquid. You may even want to put sugar on them to macerate them, let the water come out, pour some of the water off, add the sugar and pectin, and add a little bit of the liquid back as you cook, just to make sure it doesn't get too watery. So that's sort of the artistry. That's the crafty way to make a jam, to make preserves, to make jelly. The scientific way, we would get a refractometer so that we could measure the solids and the liquids and see what's going on. But really, I want people to have fun and cook and get good results. So if you don't need all these utensils and it's all scientific, science is helpful in food, but it's not that fun and yummy. So really taste the product, get a few tips. A little bit of science goes a long way.
you want me to blend this?
No, we're not going to blend it. We're going to leave this one home. We're just going to refrigerate that. And then I'm going to pipe what I used and chilled earlier, because if you put hot preserve in right now, that jam is going to really break the cake apart.
All right, so I'm gonna go refrigerate this.
Yeah, let's do it. And so he's chilled that and then put it in a bag. We're going to get ready.
What if, of course I have those, but what if you don't have like a clear plastic pastry bag or any pastry bag? What else could you use?
You could spoon this out.
Okay.
In this case, I'll show you what's handy with the bag. You can fold parchment. It's a little challenging even for pastry students sometimes to fold a bag. Paper cone. But again, I think don't really worry about those things and don't be fussy. We really just want to put the fruit in the cake. We could put a layer on the bottom, put some cake on top, maybe another layer, and that would do some of the same thing. Just don't put all the jam and the cake in the same places. And then we're going to use, you'll see in a moment, we're going to use a knife or a spatula to kind of swirl it around. So again, the two things we have are cake batter in the pan. And then this is the jam that we made earlier. Same thing, blueberry, blackberry, same recipe. And I want to make sure you can see this, because if you do have a plastic piping bag, yeah, let's see if we can see the side. Just hold it straight up like that. Would be great on the ends. We're gonna try to almost inject the cake with the berry jam, and we're gonna hold it super flat so it doesn't run out of the pan. And we're gonna kind of go underneath and put dots. And if some of it stays on top, it's okay. But again, we're just trying to put jam in different places in the cake so that we have pools of jam and lots of yummy cake. We're gonna add more jam later, so if we missed anything, we're gonna put jam on top of this.
Awesome is that?
All right, so you
Really
can see
cool.
a little bit
You can
is in
almost see it
there.
coming through here.
And then we can take a spatula and kind of figure eight through. Because, you know, we want to make it a little bit attractive.
Look at that.
So when people come over, you can say, oh, this thing I whipped together, and make it look pretty nice. Show off our, yeah, I made that jam. That's the only difference you get from making the jam and buying the can, is just the brag.
You
But
see
you can
how-
always lie.
Oh,
It's no problem.
see?
It's like it didn't happen.
Hey, let's be
I'm
real.
eating it over here.
Let's be real, guys. Things like that happen in our kitchens all the time, right? Again, don't get frustrated. Kind of laugh at yourself or your partner and say, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna say, just laugh at me. It looks so cool from the top here.
we can, let's see what we can do. Can anyone see a little bit of that top? Yeah, like.
Oh my gosh, it looks so cool.
Right. Okay, so I made one earlier. I didn't put crumble on top, but I'm going to show you one with the crumble. This is perfect because we're going to plate right here. Grab our crumble from the oven. So again, because we're going to bake this, we're not going to use this crumble. We would just save some of the crumble. And without ruining the pattern, just get a little bit on top. And then we can toast some as well. So when we serve it, we have a little bit extra, however you want to do it. So we can get a nice little shot. See that? So now we've got our vanilla cake in the pan, our fresh made jam piped in, swirled with some figure eights, and our crumble on top, brown sugar oat streusel.
Looks fabulous.
Can you pop that in the oven?
Sure can.
So while that's baking, Angelo's going to show us and kind of talk about vanilla gelato. It seems like the most simple, it's the most popular flavor in the whole world. No matter what cool, nifty flavors we come up with, vanilla is number one.
All right, so we're gonna make a home recipe that Jimmy created actually. That works great. And again, I don't know how many people have these little, this is a Cuisinart ice cream maker. So it's essentially a bowl that, and I'm not partial to Cuisinart, there's a ton of good ones out there. This is actually a bowl that you would keep in the freezer, get it really, really cold, put it in here, pour your mix in here, turn it on, and the effect of having this cold bowl and it churning with this beater will get you a decent ice cream. We did a segment on, I think it was Fox, and I used this one here, and it came out really, really nice. Hold 1 second there. Is that better? Yeah. So I'm actually not going to make it in here. I'm going to go through this process with you, and then I'll show you the stuff that we make in-house for Vero, for the cafe that we put in a pan, and then also some of our pints. So essentially, when making gelato or ice cream, and really quick, I'll talk to you about the difference between the two. Gelato is just a translation of basically ice cream. There are differences. There are differences though. In a lot of countries and a lot of industrial producers, what they do is they add overrun, and overrun translates to air. They're adding air to the product to give it volume, essentially for money purposes, right? They'll add from 30, 40, 50, they'll add up to 100% onto it. So if you notice, sometimes you grab a pint or a quart or a value item and it's really, really light, that's because it's probably 50, 60% air. Where traditional gelato, we do not do that. We use a batch freezer. And essentially a batch freezer is churning the product nice and slow, and it's not adding any air to it. You're always going to get a little overrun in a batch freezer or even a Cuisinart, just by nature, right? That whipping, it's always going to make it swell. Think of making a meringue or something like that. So we don't add any air to the product. Butterfat content, traditional European food, I'll speak to Italy, is not overdone. They're using, really classic ingredients, whether it be a tomato, basil, pasta, whatever it may be, good olive oils, and they make it really simple. They're not adding a ton of melted cheese in. Sometimes a lot of the Italian cuisines get bastardized here. They just put too much on it, and you just get lost in flavors. Simple, simple, simple. So again, gelato, they're just using lower butter fat, right? Because higher butter fat tends to coat the tongue, and you get that first, that flavor first. So a traditional ice cream will be anywhere from 12 up to 14, 16% butter fat, whereas traditional gelato, depending on parts of Italy, it'll range from 4% up to 7 or 8% butter fat. We're at around 7% butter fat. When the product is done, we're yielding about 25 to 30% overrun, again, just by natural. And then the last thing, it's real ingredients, right? We're not using syrups, artificial flavors, artificial colors. A good gelatiere, a good gelato shop, really good ingredients. The best pistachios from Sicily, hazelnut, nocciola from Piemonte. I can go on and on. If you're making a sorbet, bringing in really nice lemons from Sicily, and all that good stuff. So those are kind of the difference. Let me know if you have any questions on that. But basically here we're taking whole milk, we're taking organic sugar here. We're taking, this is Kerrygold butter. We have vanilla, and we are making our Italian vanilla, which has egg yolk in it. Again, going to Italy, certain parts of Italy, the gelato chefs like to add egg to it. They'll almost add it to every flavor. This is similar to a zabaione, but we're adding a little bit of egg yolk to it. So essentially what we're doing is the sugar has texture to it, obviously. All these ingredients have a texture to it, and we want them to emulsify. So we're going to do basically a double boil, right? So you got your pot with some hot water, your pan on top. Jimmy can probably get into a little bit more technical detail about it, but it's almost like a sous vide, where we're bringing everything together. We want everything to meld together. And then once we're done doing that, we're going to blend it to emulsify. We want all those sugars, all the fats. We want everything, all the solids to come together and emulsify nice. We're going from hot to cold. So if everything is not broken down and emulsified through some heat, right? Through, let's call it pasteurization. We're using pasteurized milk. It just doesn't give you a good texture. Sometimes you'll have an ice cream and it's almost a little grainy. for example, like if you're making a chocolate and you're putting cocoa powder in there, you don't heat that up and bring that down. You'll get that graininess to it. So emulsification, good, using good ingredients and bringing them together, marrying them together is super, super critical. Jimmy, why don't you put that together?
Sure. And then you saw in the recipe, you've got vanilla extract, because I wanted to make sure it's something you could go and pick up. Vanilla is super expensive now. So I brought some from my private collection. And what we use here is, this is Tahitian vanilla beans, my favorite, but Madagascar beans, great. There's a lot of variety. Whatever you can get, a little, this is half a bean for this recipe instead of the extract. And I would use both. So basically, this recipe is meant, again, to be simple. You work that into the, like off the side of the bowl. Thank you. And it's liquid ingredients first. We're going to try to work in that sugar. And then with the heat, like Angelo was saying, we're going to dissolve the sugar. We're going to take the texture out. We're going to make an emulsion. And we talked about sous vide. Do people know what sous vide is? Will even try? This is what I use for actually competitions, world competitions for plated dessert. And the reason I did that was very fast. We have butter, which may seem unusual, but like Angelo mentioned earlier, butter fat is really a main part of ice cream or gelato making. And if you have American ice cream uses heavy cream. So although we didn't want to take it up into that range, we want to stay with gelato. This increases the fat content a little bit. And then we're really just going to whisk it together over the heat.
Jimmy, is the butter, or Angelo, is the butter melted when you add it in?
Melt it. I would suggest putting the butter in room temperature.
Okay.
Because then it'll melt at the point that you heat it, and it just makes the emulsion faster. I'm going to put this on the stove and try to make that emulsion that we talked about.
And I'm going to go grab a couple pans and show you guys the end product. 1 second.
So everyone, what we would do with that mixture when it comes off the stove is we will strain it. And then after it's strained, cool it a little bit, and that's what we go in our Cuisinart or whatever home ice cream maker that you have. Just make sure to get the bowl as frozen as possible for like a full day. Get the mix cool in the fridge, and you'll have your best result with this kind of maker.
How much time do we have?
Sorry, Angelo, I was taking a sip of water.
Okay.
As much time as you guys need. We usually end around 7:30 or so.
Typically around 7:30, right?
Yep. But it's okay if we go longer.
Yep. All right. So this is our finished product here. So this is what you're going to find in the store. So it's the vanilla, the Italian vanilla gelato. We always like to put a little bit of, all our pans are decorated, so we'll do something. So this is kind of like a vanilla cookie. Sometimes we'll use Stella d'Oro S's, look really nice. But this is essentially a finished product. And then, these are the pints that that you can find in the store. These are actually our new pints that you can find. We did a redesign. Maybe you can show them a couple of the other ones. I don't know.
These are lovely. Yeah.
You got a Chicago pothole there?
Yeah.
You got one there? Mm-hmm. So really quick, Chicago pothole. So Chicago pothole is one of our signature flavors. And this is our rendition, our version of Rocky Road. And we basically paid tribute to potholes in Chicago. We competed with this in 2016 in the America Finals, which is South America, Central America, North America, and we took first place for the USA. So this flavor ended up taking us to Italy to the final, to the top 36 gelato shops in the world. We didn't end up doing Chicago Pothole there just because they're not going to get it. We ended up making a flavor called Coco Sogno, which is coconut dream, which is dairy-free, but tastes like dairy, the fat content in a coconut. So it was a coconut gelato, dairy-free. We made an almond nougatine as an inclusion, and then we added some Ecuadorian chocolate in there. So it was almost like an almond joy, or would it be a Mounds bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of those. It was fabulous. We ended up taking 5th place overall, but we won technical jury. So it's broken down 40% technical jury. So, you know, top culinary people from around the world. 40% public. So for 3 days, the public gets to try the product and cast their vote. And then 10% your peers, your other competitors, they have to choose another flavor that they like. So if it was up to the technical jury, we would have took 1st place in the world, but we took 5th overall. We were very happy to get on stage to get technical choice. And last year we competed again with our Sicilian pistachio, which is this flavor here. And we took 1st place again in the US. And unfortunately, due to COVID, things kind of got set back another year, but we were supposed to be going to the final in September. But now I think we can push back to next year. But enough about that.
So that doesn't say anything else to me that the world takes gelato very, very seriously, and so do we. So does Angelo, obviously, and that's important. You know, like we put that on the label so everybody knows, because you know you have to have commitment to something. If you don't stand for something, you know, you'll fall for anything, they say, right? And we're really proud of the stuff we have. Let's see what the cobbler looks like, and maybe we can plate one up and kind of put all this together in one dessert. Let's do it.
I'm gonna set this aside here.
I have a question for Jimmy, because why not use the time when you have all these questions? I have a Vitamix and it has an ice cream setting, so would that work for making the gelato at home?
Yes.
Oh.
It's going to be something that you can blend and freeze. You know what we make at home is the popular avocado chocolate.
Yeah.
Use that. Something like that works out well because it tightens up. This vanilla recipe is a little bit loose. You may want to pull out about 25% of the liquid.
Okay.
And put it in a Vitamix and then freeze it. And as it freezes, pull it out, blend it a little bit, and keep freezing it so you can get a better texture. That's the emulsion that we were talking about earlier.
Okay. I'll try it.
The best ice cream gelato on the planet. It's pretty good. And it's really good because you made it, and you made it with love, with ingredients that you like.
I know, but why should I bother making it? I could just go into our frozen section or to the gelato case and get delicious gelato. So
Absolutely. And I want to make one more quick point, and I'll let Jimmy go. People make the mistake when they buy ice cream. Again, I hope they're buying Vero, but any gelato, any ice cream, if they're buying an ice cream that's frozen and rock solid, to take that out of the freezer and try to eat it immediately is a big mistake. For a couple of reasons. A, it's like a rock and it doesn't have a nice creamy texture, but the main thing is because when it's so cold, you don't get the full flavor. You're basically getting cold, that freezer, right? So let it slack for 10 or 15 minutes, okay? So you should be able to, you know, give it a little squeeze here, and then you can really, really enjoy it. And another thing, when ice cream or gelato melts, right, and you start to get this little liquidy on top here, this corner part here, it starts to melt and what we call curl. The milk, the fats, and the water separate, right? That's what's happening. That's what that sheen is. It doesn't miraculously come back together. So if you're pulling it out, try to finish it, because if you let it slack, you eat it, you put it back in the freezer, then you're getting freezer burn and you're getting crystallization and you're kind of losing it. So go ahead.
So yeah, once you pull it out and temper it like that, you have to eat it all. You heard it here, right? You have to eat it all.
That's just a sales
not that much. No, it's not that much. How many people at home have finished one of these by themselves? Everybody, right? Let's be honest. Yeah. Or at our house, we pull a few of them out and everybody, you know, scoops and enjoys. Here's our cobbler that I had baked just ahead of this one. It takes about 50 minutes at 350 because you have all that other liquid in there. Show them that. It's a little warm, so be careful.
It looks beautiful.
How
Thank
nice
you.
is that?
And that's something that I'd be proud. Like if I was going to put it on the center of a table while, you know, the family was getting ready to eat, I would add some jam on top of this and some crumble. If we're going to slice them up like we're going to kind of treat everybody after dinner, we're going to do it that way on a plate. I'm going to look for a nice berry section. Oh, you could spoon this. It's so soft. But I'm a pastry chef, so I'm going to cut it. But spooning it is good too. You like spooning? It's good.
Man,
Look at that.
look at that.
So maybe show them that a little bit if you don't mind.
People, look how moist that is.
That looks amazing.
Oh my Lord.
So we are going to do the kind of flip it over like that. I think just looks beautiful. And do a second piece behind it. Oh, this is like fruit bread pudding, right? So good.
And it's nice and warm.
And then I'm going to add a little bit of jam and crumble. If you would add some vanilla gelato that everyone can see.
Looks really beautiful.
Where would you like this?
You know what? So right here in the front. I'm going to drizzle some jam on top of it, I think. Have fun when you plate up. All my kids play with their food. I'm the dad that can't say don't play with your food because for years I'm like, here's spaghetti for you guys. Here's some mac and cheese. But if it's dessert that I made, you know, we're going to make it look beautiful, right?
Jimmy, you
Maybe
rock.
A little bit on the plate. And then I'm just going to crumble this up.
Jimmy, I think one of your cute minis is here with us on the phone on a beach.
Hey, Sophia. Sophia's in the kitchen. Are you the professional eater or professional chef? Professional eater. She's going to be the one that does the reviews for the news.
Oh Lord, look at that.
And there you have it. Blueberry, blackberry jam laced in a vanilla cake. We're called
Whoa!
Berry Cobbler with oat brown sugar streusel and vanilla gelato with Tahitian vanilla beans. And I think we teased this out a little bit. Do you want to show our version here at Vero, our version of Berry Cobbler? I'm pretty excited about it because some of these elements are in this pan.
So this is going to be available in the stores, Berry Cobbler Gelato, really soon. When is it coming out?
Next month. So June 1st, we're going to launch this in all 50 Mariano stores, Blueberry Cobbler Gelato. So please make this, and then in June, go get that.
That looks unbelievable. I mean, your dessert looks unbelievable. The gelato pan looks unbelievable. I mean, you guys, you both rock.
It is Taste Tester Tuesday, and we haven't done it yet. So do you mind if we taste it?
Yeah, please tell us all about it.
I'm going to use this guy.
There you go, get in there. I like how Angela's professional eater gets a little bit of everything on the plate, breaks out that cobbler.
Madonna mia. Unbelievable, fantastico. It's so moist.
It's moist, and you know, the hot cold thing is really working for me. Always, like, even in the middle of summer, you leave that cobbler out so it's still a little warm, but when you've got that gelato with it, it's delicious. And I would keep the jam a little cold too if you have a warm cobbler.
Is this paleo, keto friendly? Just
No.
say yes.
No, but if you reward yourself with a little bit of something, if it's not in your actual diet, I can help you. So email us and we can give you some options of what to use to make it fit any lifestyle or any dietary choice.
This is not made for television. Friends, I'm telling you, this is amazing. Jimmy, You rocked it out, brother.
Thank you.
I can't wait to try it. It's such, honestly, Jimmy, it looks a little bit more elevated than like a simple cobbler, but still really approachable and easy. That recipe, I can't wait to try the cake recipe. I can't wait to try the whole recipe, but I'm excited about the cake because I feel like that's something you can use for multiple kinds of desserts.
Yeah, you can. It could, like I said, be the cupcakes. You know, we make that all the time. Put it in a piping bag, leave it in the fridge overnight, bake cupcakes out of it.
Oh my God, I love it.
If you make the cobbler, send us photos of how yours came out, okay, Amanda? I want to see it.
I'm gonna do it. I want to do it. If I don't do it this week, then this weekend for sure. It looks delish.
And remember, we trade for brownies and cookies too. So if you send us some baked goods, we will give you brownies and cookies. So
Okay, that sounds fun.
Hey, so, you know, I just really quick want to say something and then I'll shut up. During this pandemic and everything that's going on, obviously, we're so grateful for all the people, the first responders at the hospital, the doctors, the nurses. There's so many people, whether it be the firemen, the ambulance drivers, there's a ton of people, but I just, you know, we want to point out, Jimmy and I talked about this the other day. We spent a lot of time in grocery stores. Obviously, Mariano's is our favorite and where we spend most of our time. And I think we've taken for granted all those wonderful people that are out there every day. They're exposing themselves like everybody else is. Thankfully, things are starting to calm down a little bit, but we want to send a shout out to everybody at Mariano's, all those people working, whether it be in the deli, whether it be at checkout, the baggers, Vero Cafe, the bakery, the deli. We love you guys, and we're so grateful for what you're doing every day, putting yourself out there and putting yourself at risk to make sure that we all can eat. All our fellow restaurant people, chefs, friends, that's a whole nother part of it. So we love you guys, and we're so grateful. We haven't stopped here, fortunately, or sometimes unfortunately. We've been rolling since day one, and we've tried to stay as innovative as possible to keep our people working. So I'm grateful for my team that kept it going, and yeah, rock on, go USA. We're all gonna get through this.
we love you guys. Thank you very much for keeping us busy and making lots of gelato for you.
Angela and Jimmy, that's really, really sweet. Our team has been working really hard, as has yours. So I know they appreciate that. So I'll let everybody know. Thank you.
Please do.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna dig into the rest of this. We'll catch you all later. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, you guys. You did a great job, and it was so fun. I can't wait to send you pics or bring over some of the cobbler when I make it.
Bring it over. I'm not joking. Bring it over.
I will. I'll do it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much, Angelo and Jimmy.
Thank you.
Thank you.